did I put my thong?
What's up, everybody? I'm Z-Wade, the Z-Wade in Z-Wade Photo. I've been saying for a while that the 85-1.2 is my favorite lens of all time. But sometimes I feel like the 135 Plena kind of comes close in certain ways. Haven't shot them side by side and reviewed images side by side. Maybe the 135 is actually my favorite. Maybe they're tied. Maybe there's really no difference at all and I'm not going to be able to tell the difference between the two. For the car. Oh, well, hell, they turned off. To make this as accurate of a test as possible, we're going to use just one camera, the Z8. I know the Z8 and the Z9, for me, that's good enough because it's basically the exact same sensor, exact same performance, but that won't be good enough for some of the pansies out there. And so one sensor, we're just going to take a couple of quick shots, then do it, whoa, wrong way. I think somebody gave up on breaking in somewhere.
Yeah.
I'd like to have those bricks would actually create bokeh balls. It's going to require a crouch down, which puts you directly in the sun, or directly in the shade. Crouching alley, hidden Nikon. Crouching alley.
That's it.
Hidden Nikon. I love Kung Fu movies, I'm not going to lie, they're like some of my favorite. It'd just be actually more this way. So like around here. All right, so here we are in Lightroom, and there are some interesting findings indeed, I think anyway. In this first image, this is the 85-1.2, and then this is the 135. I thought maybe for a moment that the 135 was maybe a little bias to red. If we look right in here on the cheek, and then we go back to the 85, it looks just like a little more red. In the next image, however, this is also the 85-1.2 at f1.2, because I did just a few shots. I really do think it was just the lighting, because skin tone wise, there's basically no difference that I can see. 135 at f2.8. This is the 85 at f2.8. We'll look at sharpness in a second, but skin tone wise, I think they're the exact same. They render with the same kind of warmth. Yeah, I don't think there's any difference there. Let's go back to the 85 at f2.8 so we can get an idea of the sharpness here. So let's stick that right there. Let's stick the 135 right there. I'm gonna have to get close for this. I just adjusted the tint a little bit to kind of get the colors a little bit closer. Again, keep in mind, there's no difference in the actual tones that we get out of both of these lenses that I can tell. This particular image with the 85 1.2 that I shot at f2.8, lighting was just a little bit different. 85, 135. I'm going to just pick a spot like right here. The slight head turn in this 135 versus this one makes it a little bit difficult because we actually get a little more shadow across the cheek. So it's kind of hard to tell. So it appears, at least in this shot, the 135 at f2.8 does seem to be a little sharper than the 85-1.2 shot at f2.8. But whenever I was looking at these earlier, this particular image here, I shot at f1.2 with the 85-1.2. And whenever I was getting close on this one, they seem nearly as sharp as each other. So I'm going to chalk this one up to maybe a little movement or something. So at this working distance, the 85mm at f1.2 at f1.2 is nearly as sharp as the 135 at f2.8. We're going to get real close. Hang on. Let's get in at a very unfair 200%. This is the 85 at f1.2 and the 135 at f2.8. 135, the 85. Now, obviously, the 135 is a little bit sharper at f2.8 than the 85 1.2 is at f1.2. Of course it is. It's stopped down, right? But it is kind of shocking that at least from here, or even at like 100%, that's the 85 f1.2. I'm looking right here. I mean, you almost can't tell a difference even at 100%. At 200%, you can see the differences. So the 85mm f1.2 is nearly as sharp at f1.2 as the 135 is at f2.8. All right, so now what I want to do, I want to do minimum focus distance on both lenses, wide open apertures, because I think, let's be honest, that's probably why I like the 85 1.2 so much, is just because how beautiful it gets at its minimum focus. It's perfect for like that beautiful fall off. So it may just not be fair at all. So I guess it doesn't really matter where we are for that. So as long as we have like good light somewhere, actually maybe let's get in the shade. Yeah, and kind of do it like a real even light. So. All right, so here are the results of the minimum focus distance test. Obviously, the 135 is going to appear that we're closer because it's 135 versus 85, both at their minimum focused distances. But this, you may have heard me talk about this before, and this is why I slightly lean towards the 85 f1.2 being favored over the 135. It's because at minimum focus, this is what we get. Absolutely beautiful, sharp on the iris, beautiful fall off. It's real gradual, really, really beautiful. And then this, the 135, consistently at its minimum focus distance, it doesn't want to do the eye, right? So whenever you're very, very close to your subject, it always seems like it misses the eye on eye tracking. And since you're working so close, really you need to be in pinpoint autofocus. If your camera has pinpoint, you probably have better luck with at least, single point autofocus. But this has been pretty consistent. And obviously you want to back up from the minimum focus distance, right? But I've said before that the 85 seems like it kind of forces you at minimum focus to be in the perfect position as it relates to your model for it to be just like absolutely stunning, right? If you get too close, you'll see that your focus confirmation isn't there, right? You back up to the point where you get focus confirmation and then just back up a little hair more. You should do that every time you're at minimum focus. You should always back up a hair more. That's what I did with both of these. And the 85 1.2 just forces you to be in that perfect area where this lens looks as absolutely stunning as it possibly can, right? And then the 135, it's just not as comfortable of a working distance, right? That's what I've said in the past about how I like the working distance that the 85 1.2, that's not necessarily the focal length, but that's the design of that lens. The minimum focus distance on that it's just really good for that lens. The 135 f1.8, if you want to avoid this, you need to back up even more from your minimum focus. And that's what I kind of don't like about this compared to the 85 1.2. The 85 1.2 for me, in my experience, behaves like every other Nikon Z mount lens. If I want to get as close as I possibly can, I get to that minimum focus where I get confirmation and then back up a little bit. That's exactly what I did with this. I got as close as the confirmation and then I backed up a little bit and I have this same kind of, you know, consistent missing the eye. It happens all the time with this particular lens. But again, you know, I would never shoot this shot with the 135. I just wouldn't. If I wanted this kind of shot, I would take out the 105 MC because I'm just much more comfortable filling the frame like this with that lens because, I mean, you can get so close to your subject's eye that it's kind of uncomfortable. But, you know, wrong kind of shot with a fantastic lens, but maybe not its strong point being this close. So have I made a decision on which one is... What an absolute douche. So have I made a decision on which is my favorite lens of all time and where they stand? Yes, I actually have. The Nikkor Z 85mm f1.2s is still my favorite lens of all time. And the 135 f1.8 S Plena is actually not in a close second. I would say that my favorite Nikon Z lenses, 85 f1.2, that's my favorite lens ever, period. And then in second place, currently as I make this video, the 35-1.2 hasn't shown up yet. The 50mm f1.2, and third, the 20mm f1.8s. And I think the Plena comes up in fourth place. That's what I think. That's what I'm going to stick with for now. However, I want you to keep something in mind. Is this kind of performance worth the extra money for the 85 f1.2? I would say maybe not. Maybe not for 99% of people. I think for most people, there's an incredible benefit to having the perfect bokeh balls in the background if you're a portrait shooter. You know, there's basically no tonal differences. There's no sharpness differences besides the fact that the 85-1.2 at f1.2 is almost like it's just so barely not as sharp as the 135 at f2.8 that you could basically just say that they are as sharp as each other whenever the 85 is at f1.2. That's incredible. I think if I was a working photographer and the money that I spent on photography gear had really serious... He's idling that piece of shit in the driveway across the way. And he shut it off. To your guys' perspective, that wasn't very long. For me, that was about 4 minutes of waiting him to shut the douche mobile down. Right, so if I was a working photographer and the money that I had to spend was really had to return on its investment, I think the 135 f1.8s, the perfect bokeh balls and the fact that it's so incredibly sharp, and it's as sharp as a lens that's $500 more, I think that it's probably more useful to have bokeh balls like no other person that competes with me has than to have something that I can shoot at f1.2. That being said, I'm the kind of guy that I appreciate the beauty that comes with the 85 f1.2 when it's shot at f1.2, that creaminess and that incredible fall off, right? I'm a huge fan of that. That's artsy stuff. That's not make me money stuff. I think for like a working professional, the 80, just save the $500 or $600, whatever it is, save the money and get the Plena, because I think that it's probably more useful to somebody who's like charging money for portraits. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Anyway, that was a question that only I was asking. Which one is actually my favorite? But let me know in the comments if you've shot both, which one you prefer, or if you've only shot one, tell us what you think about it. I'm Z Wade, the Z Wade, and Z Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube.